Smerconish, and welcome to CNN Tonight. This evening, the strongest evidence yet that the 2020 election was fair and square. Nevertheless, you're also going to learn how the election denialism movement is sticking around and maybe coming to your town. First, newly gathered data from the 6 battleground states former President Trump disputed in the 2020 race. The Associated Press reviewed every possible case of voter fraud. The numbers are minuscule. They would have no impact on the final result. Take a look. 25.5 million people voted in those states. Joe Biden beat then President Trump by more than 311,000 votes there. And how many votes from those 25.5 million were questionable? Fewer than 475, less than 1/4% of Biden's victory margin in those states. It wasn't even close. And not all of that handful of votes were even for Biden. And when the AP contacted Trump for comment, he, quote, repeated a litany of unfounded claims of fraud that he'd made previously and offered no evidence that specifically contradicted the AP's reporting. But like everything else in the mountain of evidence that the election was legitimate, it doesn't seem to matter to those who believe only in promoting the conspiracies at any cost. I've been saying a key question about January 6th remains, what were the foot soldiers told? What was spontaneous? And what was planned? Members of the Oath Keepers group allegedly gathered and stashed weapons in advance of the attack and cut through the crowd in military-like formation, according to the Justice Department. There's a pipe bomber still on the lam, and more questions than answers about what happened at D.C.'s Willard Hotel, where the night before January 6th there was a war room. Key players in the Trump world were there: Steve Bannon, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, and more. Those same lieutenants are now actively recruiting the next batch of foot soldiers for a crucial but quieter mission.
We don't have an option. At the school board level, right? At the county supervisor level, at the precinct level, we're taking it. We're going to take this back village by village. Dan Schultz.
Precinct by precinct.
Precinct by precinct, village by village.
My guest has been working with researchers to track the effort happening across social media. In an eye-opening piece for the Washington Post, he points to how some of the people behind January 6th have now turned their attention to 3 primary targets: school boards, city and county commissions, and secretaries of state and supervisors of elections. Ron Filipkowski also warned time after time what could be brewing in the days leading up to January 6th. Way back on December 19, he screen grabbed messages on Parler talking about, quote, enemies of democracy and building gallows. On December 30th, he spotted a Proud Boys video talking about how they go undercover to blend in. On New Year's Day, he showed how Bannon was trying to compare January 6th to D-Day. The next day, he shared an Oath Keepers tweet that warned of bloodlust in Washington on the 6th. Ron Filipkowski is a criminal defense attorney, former federal and state prosecutor, former member of Florida's Judicial Nomination Commission, and joins me now. Ron, thank you for being here. So months before the election, you began monitoring these extremist elements. How come? What caused you to do this?
Well, at that time, I was a lifelong Republican, and I was monitoring the more extreme elements of the party to try and persuade moderate Republicans and independent voters to vote for Joe Biden. So that's kind of how it started.
There was a tweet from President Trump on December 19 of 2020. This is the one where he said, big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Don't miss it. Information to follow. Be there will be wild was also a part of what he put out. How was that message interpreted by the people that you were monitoring?
Well, people forget that January 6th was the third Stop the Steal rally. There were 2 in D.C. before that, early in December, and we had monitored those. We watched people that were involved in those previous 2 rallies, some of the same organizers, but they were kind of duds. They fizzled. There weren't that many people there. The second one was a little alarming because a lot of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers showed up, but still it was kind of ad hoc. When the December 19th tweet was sent out by President Trump at the time, I was monitoring their social media pages, and they just exploded. They just lit up. And basically the consistent theme was the boss is giving us our orders. This is the big one. let's all gear up and let's get ready. And that's kind of like the Proud Boys nickname for Trump is the boss.
In other words,
And
this was like the bat signal had been put up in the sky, and they were all going to respond in kind.
I can't even tell you the difference between their traffic on social media from the 18th to the 19th after that tweet came out. It was like night and day, and it was very alarming.
Okay, so most of us were shocked by the events that unfolded on January 6th, but as I combed through your social media in the month leading up to the 6th, it strikes me that you probably weren't surprised by the way it all unfolded. Am I wrong?
Not surprised in the least. I got a lot of pushback from the people who followed me on Twitter, who have since deleted their replies to some of my posts, which basically was saying you're being alarmist. You're the first two Stop the Steal rallies, not much happened. You're overhyping this. Nobody's going to show up. And I said, look, you can't compare the previous two rallies because this one, Trump is getting directly involved. And when I looked at some of the influencers and the leaders, the money that got involved, the buses that were being organized, different media platforms telling people to come all across the country. I read things from people in California, Washington, Oregon, all saying they were going, and that was much different than the other two. And also saying what they were going to do when they got there. So, no, I wasn't surprised in the least by what happened.
So, Ron, as part of my introduction of you tonight, I said perhaps coming soon to your town. What's going on today? What is now the outreach on a grassroots level?
Well, after January 6th, we saw the foot soldiers get arrested. And that's kind of what we were doing with several other people on social media for about a month or so afterwards, was helping to identify the people in the crowd. And we did that. Then we started looking, well, where are the organizers? Where are the leaders? None of them have been arrested. Where are they now? We started tracking them down, watching them form new websites, new organizations. A lot of them came to Florida. And I think at that point in time, they were trying to figure out what they were going to do. And then we saw their goal was to delegitimize the Biden administration with all the election fraud stuff, to then disrupt and to grift, to regain power, influence, and to make money. And that's what we saw them do. And they used different issues like vaccine mandates was fuel, mask mandates, CRT they used. They used the election fraud, obviously, a host of different issues to get people stirred up and to rally to their banner.
Okay, but when I now see unrest at school boards across the country, are you telling me it's coming from the same elements? And if so, is it organic or is it orchestrated?
Oh, it's very orchestrated, and it's the same people. I mean, it's the same people, Charlie Kirk, Steve Bannon, whose show I watch every day. He's kind of the Yoda. He's the evil genius puppet master that eggs everybody on behind this. He's on 6 days a week, I think 10 hours a day on that internet podcast, getting people all whipped up. So no, we saw the organizations put in place, the mid-level groups like Moms for Liberty and other sort of quote-unquote patriotic groups organizing. We saw them sending out scripts of things to read. We saw people traveling.
Are you in touch with law enforcement? I mean, you're like Inspector Clouseau out there assembling all this data. Are you handing it off to anybody? And also, do the people you're observing, are they aware of you? Do you feel threatened?
Yeah. I mean, I put my name on it. Most of the people who do what I do are anonymous accounts, and I decided to put my name on it. So yeah, they know who I am. I mean, I read their traffic when they're talking about me. So that happens all the time.
And finally, the question I asked a moment ago, are you working in concert with any branch of law enforcement? And were you before January 6th? Did you tell anybody in the federal government or law enforcement what you were seeing?
I was forwarding everything to the FBI through their social media account. So yes, things were being forwarded to them. They were being tagged on everything. And so, yeah, and we try to notify the school boards when we know something's coming and let them know.
Scary stuff. but we're very grateful. Ron Filipkowski, thank you so much for being here.